So, it's been a long while since I've made a video. After tearing my chest, I had to go through a lot of physical therapy while working full time. I did have a brief recovery period off of work, but the injury set me so far back financially that when I did go back, I ended up having to work 2 jobs to make up some of that loss, with only one arm, mind you. And it was about as enjoyable as it sounds. It didn't leave me a lot of time to play games as much, and then writing scripts for them on top of that? Yeah, forget about it. And only to make matters worse, there was a really bad storm that took out my second PC that I used to record and capture footage, and so I had to convert everything over to my main PC, and I ended up losing a lot of footage of one of my initial Nioh 2 playthroughs, so I had to do a second playthrough to make this video. And so that's the reason why I haven't made any videos for a while. Here's a picture of the scar just to show you how bad it was. Well, since making long videos really wasn't an option for me, I decided I would just focus solely on Nioh 2. This time, I didn't just want to beat the game so I could make a review. I really wanted to learn it, and as you can see, I have over 500 hours in the game now, so I've learned a thing or two. I wouldn't claim that I'm a master, but there's a lot that I want to say about it. So, my initial problem with Nioh 2 came from the way that I was trying to play it. I wasn't approaching it the way Nioh wanted to be played. I was still treating it like Stranger of Paradise. Now, in the Reddit post that I made with my initial video, people had argued that I was trying to play it like a Souls game, but I don't agree with that. The real issue was that I just love time parries and perfect blocks. They're one of my favorite mechanics to master in any game, and Nioh 2 doesn't have that. And at first, it frustrated me. I relied on it a lot in Stranger of Paradise, and I've really never been a huge fan of dodge-only defense systems. Now sure, they can be good, but they've just never been my thing. And after really sitting down with Nioh 2 and thinking about it, I realized my issue. The first might sound a little strange, but hear me out. The combo input system in Stranger of Paradise in some ways reminds me of Street Fighter. The combos are strings of button presses and directional inputs, finished with the right trigger for a special move. It's not a perfect comparison, but something made that click for me, because Nioh 2, oddly enough, feels like Tekken in some ways. Nioh has this rhythm and this flow where you're chaining attacks and switching stances and you're moving left and right in a 3D environment, and yes, Stranger of Paradise is also 3D. Something about the flow of Nioh just really reminded me of Tekken, and once I started thinking about it like that, Nioh 2 started to make sense to me. And that gave me the tools to break away from seeing it like Stranger of Paradise just because it was a Team Ninja game. Now, since I struggled with my first attempt at playing Nioh 2, I wanted to make this combat review a little different. Instead of just talking about the game, I've also made a tutorial to help new players close some of the difficult gaps that can make the early experience pretty rough. As I go through the mechanics of Nioh 2's combat system, I'll be breaking them down into simple tutorials, explaining each concept, and have prepared practical exercises you can apply to any weapon. Now, this isn't meant to make you as good as your favorite Nioh 2 YouTuber or Reddit legend like Shape or Proof or Llama or the Nioh 2 GOAT himself last to load, but it will give you the tools and mindset to start that journey with a little bit less friction. So, with that, let's get into the review. Nioh's attack system might look familiar at first. You've got your quick or basic attack on X or square, and your heavy attack on Y or triangle. Pressing them consecutively performs a combo, and that combo changes depending on the stance you're in. Each stance, high, mid, and low, has its own unique set of moves and flow. Attacking consumes ki, which is essentially your stamina bar, and there's a direct relationship between how much ki you spend and how much damage you deal. High stance heavy attacks hit the hardest but cost the most ki. On the other hand, low stance quick attacks use the least ki and do less damage. You can switch stances by holding right bumper R1 and pressing one of the face buttons. R1 plus right or triangle puts you in high stance. R1 plus X or square for mid stance, and R1 plus A or X for low stance And finally, R1 and B or circle will sheath your weapon. And here's the cool part. You can change your stance at any time, even mid-combo. That's where Nioh really shines. The stance system is simple to understand, but hard to master. It's not just a stylistic choice, it's core to competent play. Mastering when and how to shift stances is what separates a good player from a great one. After any attack, some of the ki you spent can be recovered through something called a ki pulse, and when you attack, see a small burst of light sweep across your ki bar. Pressing the right bumper or R1 during that window will refund some of the ki you used, depending on when you press it. If you time it perfectly, right as the bar reaches its max refund, you'll perform what's called a perfect ki pulse, and the difference is noticeable in both animation and how much you can continue attacking. It's one of those mechanics that seems small at first, but once you get it down, it completely changes how the game feels. And managing ki efficiently is the backbone of Nioh's combat flow. But of course, before you can even attack or worry about ki at all, you'll need a weapon. If you have the complete edition of Nioh 2, you'll have access to 11 melee weapons and 3 ranged weapons. While the structure is similar across each of them, each weapon type feels completely unique in a good way. And I'll tell you right now, the weapon you choose will heavily impact your enjoyment of the game your first time through. When I started, I went with the Kusarigama. I liked it, but it just didn't click for me. Then I tried the katana, which admittedly went better, and I even used it in my first video to show how it helped me overcome some of the early Nioh 2 challenges. But it wasn't until I picked up the fist that everything suddenly made sense. Now, if I were to go back and use the Kusarigama now, I'd have no problem. But I'll explain once we get deeper into ki pulsing. Each weapon in Nioh 2 has its own mechanics and strengths and weaknesses that may align better with some players more than others. Now, don't get me wrong, you can absolutely get good with any weapon, but one of those 11 is going to give you the tools you need to push through the toughest parts of the game before you fully master its systems. And that is your weapon. The one you can rely on when everything feels stacked against you. And for me, that weapon was the fist. Something about them just clicked, and once I started using them, stance switching and ki pulsing finally made sense. Now, finding your weapon might take time. While all weapons have a similar structure, each one comes with its own skill tree filled with active skills that you'll unlock through using it. And as you fight, you'll earn weapon proficiency points that you can spend to expand your toolkit. For example, the fists have exactly what I was looking for. Anyone who's watched my videos knows how much I love flow and defense mid-combo in action RPGs. And in the mid-stance skill tree, there's an active skill called Opportunist, and it works like a perfect guard, but even better. When used in succession with other active skills, it contributes to the fist's Unbroken mechanic, which gives you a damage buff for linking active skills together. Likewise, in the low stance tree, there's a skill called Ocean Zephyr, a special dodge that also adds to your Unbroken stacks when executed in the middle of a combo string. These two moves let you defend as part of your combo flow, turning defense into an offensive rhythm, and the rush you get from pulling them off mid-fight, seamlessly chaining them into your combo, is exhilarating. Just take a look. Before anything else though, I highly recommend getting the ki pulse mechanic down, practicing attacking in all 3 stances, and really focus on timing that perfect ki pulse. Once you nail that rhythm, everything in Nioh 2 starts to feel connected. So, this is a good time for us to begin our first exercise. Grab any weapon you want, it doesn't matter which, and this is probably best to do when you first create a character and you're in the interim and all of them are available to try. Take a few minutes to just attack, switch stances, and get a feel for how the weapon moves. Once you find one that feels good in your hands, go to mid or high stance and press the heavy attack. Now, watch how much ki is spent and pay attention to the moment the key bar starts its refund charge. This window. Practice landing a perfect key pulse right as that charge completes. Heavy attacks and high stance usually have longer animations, so they're great for learning timing. Also, notice the cluster of lights that flow up your character's body. That's another cue you can use mid-fight to time your key pulse perfectly. Once you're comfortable pulsing after heavy attacks, switch to mid-stance and practice your basic combo. And let's just keep it simple. So, attack once, then key pulse. Attack twice, key pulse. Attack 3 times, then key pulse. So, 1, pulse. 1, 2, pulse. 1, 2, 3, pulse. Try that with a few different weapons that catch your interest, and feel the differences in their animation speeds, especially the longer ones in high stance, and use those to dial in your sense of rhythm for the key pulse. Some active skills can only be assigned to specific stances, and some can only be executed from the guard position. For example, Opportunist, the skill I mentioned earlier, is a mid-stance only move, and it can only be performed while guarding. That kind of restriction might sound limiting, but it's actually what gives Nioh 2's combat so much depth. You're not just memorizing combo, you're learning context, when to guard, when to dodge, when to switch stances. It all matters. Honestly, I could make an entire video just about the fists, they're that good. The fists in Nioh 2 are without a doubt perfection in gaming in my eyes. Everything about them, the speed, the rhythm, the defensive options, the way they reward precision just feels incredible to me. Now earlier I mentioned that all weapons share a similar structure, and what I mean by that is each weapon has a skill assignment menu that lets you see which active skills are tied to which stance or input. In this menu you can choose which skills you want assigned to each slot. Since some skills occupy the same position, you'll often have to pick between them. But it goes deeper than that. From this same menu, you can also enhance your active skills by assigning attributes to them. These attributes can make your skills stronger, reduce their ki, or even give them an elemental effect. And you unlock these enhancements through the Samurai and Yokai skill trees. For example, in the Samurai tree, there's a passive skill called Masterful Slice, which increases ki damage by 20%. I can go into the skill assignment menu and attach the bonus to one of my favorite moves, Archer Impact. I should note you do this by once you're highlighting the skill, you press square and this attributes menu shows up. This level of customization is one of the ways Nioh 2 really shines, and this game does a fantastic job of giving players real agency in how they want to play. You're not just choosing a weapon, you're crafting a style. That said, this is also why I said finding the right weapon for you can take time. You'll need to experiment, swap skills, and tweak attributes until you find that perfect style that feels natural to you. Now, if you get nothing else out of this video, please pay attention to this part. What I'm going to explain next is what took me from barely being able to string together combos to fighting fluidly and even pulling off unpracticed combos in real time fluidly. You can go watch all kinds of other players, people like Shape, Proofer Llama, and Last to Load, or even just some daily Reddit posts of really amazing players. You'll see them using the same weapon that you choose, performing these insane, elaborate combos, and no matter how hard you try to copy them, it won't click. You'll press the same buttons and still wonder why it doesn't feel right. And I want to help you bridge the gap that I struggled with, and I think that a lot of new players will struggle to cross. So, please follow along with what I do to understand this. From the interim, create a new character, and from the interim, let's grab the axe. Now, I have not used this weapon before, outside of trying it in this starting room, so I have no idea what active skills it has. But even without spending any points, we already have some things to work with to teach us some Nioh 2 fundamentals. Now, I've watched plenty of videos with Proofer Llama and Last to Load, and while those guys do a good job of explaining the fundamentals, What I think all the videos I've watched have lacked is the practical application of what they're explaining, and this is what I want to do with this video for new players, because I still had to figure this out on my own. Because the axe has long attack animations, it's a perfect weapon to demonstrate something called pre-switching. Pre-switching is when you change stances early before your attack animation finishes, so that you're already in position to use an ability or an attack that's only available in a different stance. Now remember, you can change stances at any time. Now, I knew that, and those guys did explain this, but there is a subtle nuance that you have to figure out that nobody that I have watched has explained. Some people may have explained this, but I haven't seen it. So, let's practice this, and hopefully it'll help you on your journey. Start in high stance and press heavy attack. Now notice how long the animation lasts. Use that window. While the attack animation is still going, press the input to switch to mid or low stance from high. You want to get comfortable doing this before the attack ends. Timing that stance change early is what we call pre-switching. Get this down. It's a small mechanic, but it's one of the keys to making your combat flow naturally. Okay, but that isn't even the secret that they don't explain. Now that you understand what pre-switching is, here's what I want you to learn. Practice doing a heavy attack in all three stances and pre-switching between them. Go from high to low, high to mid, mid to high, mid to low, and finally low to high, then low to mid. Once you're comfortable doing that, add a key pulse at the end. Attack, pre-switch, key pulse. Do that in all combinations. Once you're comfortable with that, grab the staff. After performing an attack with a long animation, you'll notice that you can't move or press any buttons until the key pulse refund charge begins. But the very moment that the refund starts, you can act again, meaning you can start your next move immediately after the beginning of a key pulse refund charge. Understanding the timing of this is huge if you want to be able to perform fluid combos. So, as you're learning, I want you to remember this phrase, pulse and go. You want to pulse and go. Alright, so here's an exercise that I've developed that'll help you lock this in, and once you've got it, you can apply it to any weapon. Let's start with the staff in mid stance. Though you can use high or low if you want to, but for the sake of simplicity, just follow along with me and do it from mid. Begin by practicing the basic quick attack combo that we did at the beginning. Then perform a key pulse and immediately press heavy attack. So it should look like this. 1, 2, 3, pulse, heavy attack. As soon as that pulse happens, your heavy input should already be going. You want to 1, 2, 3, pulse and go. Once you're comfortable with that, we'll start adding pre-switching to the exercise. Now, the staff has a mechanic where you can hold the attack button to extend the animation window. So for each of these exercises, when doing a heavy attack, hold the button down. Start in mid stance with the staff. Hold heavy attack, and while the animation is playing, pre-switch to low stance. When the key pulse charge completes, try to perfect pulse, then immediately hold for a low heavy attack. And while that animation is happening, pre-switch to high stance, pulse and go with a high heavy attack. And keep practicing this cycle. It will teach you how to stance switch mid-combo while mixing quick and heavy attacks and key pulses seamlessly. Okay, if you're appreciating this so far, keep watching because we're just getting started and there's still more I want to show you to help you get on the road to playing Nioh 2 competently. Now, one thing you need to be mindful of, especially on your first playthrough, is there's always something shooting at you, or something about to drop on you from the ceiling. The developers love to do this to you, so get used to it and use it to your advantage. Your ranged weapons make a lot of encounters way easier. They do massive damage when you land critical hits, so I fully recommend using them whenever possible. Alright, now I actually did try to see if it was possible to incorporate these by knocking someone back and then switching to your ranged weapon, and you can kind of do it, but that's really just for style. I don't think it adds any kind of, combo functionality, and I've never seen anybody else do it, so functionally, ranged weapons are best used to thin out enemies or open fights safely before you dive in. Nioh 2 gives you 3 types of ranged weapons. Bows, which do the least amount of damage and have the shortest recovery time. Rifles, which are a solid middle ground between damage and recovery. And hand cannons, which have the slowest reload, but they hit like a truck. I don't really prefer one over the other. It's all about what feels best to you. And remember, you can dodge to cancel the reload animation anyway, so you're never really completely locked down. So, make ranged weapons a part of your toolkit, because in Nioh 2, if you aren't taking that shot first, something's probably already shooting at you. Now, alongside weapon combos and ranged attacks, Nioh 2 also gives you access to Ninjutsu and Onmyo magic. Now, Nioh takes a slightly different approach with these systems. Instead of drawing from a shared internal resource like mana in Stranger of Paradise, both Ninjutsu and Onmyo magic are treated as items. You can craft individual uses of these abilities, which you can then assign to your item menu. And just like weapons, you'll gain experience while using them. When I first played Nioh 2, I completely ignored these systems, but that was a mistake. They're deceptively useful, and no matter what playstyle you prefer, I highly recommend making use of them. Some enemies that are resistant to melee damage are surprisingly weak to ninjutsu and onmyo attacks. For example, slimes are weak to fire and can be taken down easily with onmyo fire shots or Iga bombs. Actually, I think they might be weak to lightning as well, or maybe even more, but just for the sake of simplicity, you won't go wrong with fire. Now this time around, I used bombs and magic liberally, and the difference was huge. Both ninjutsu and onmyo magic have their own skill trees, which, as I mentioned earlier, come with a wide range of enhancements for your playthrough. For instance, in the ninjutsu tree, there's a node that increases your elixir carrying capacity, which is a massive help early on. Or, well, the earliest you can get it. No matter what your build or weapon preference is, I found both of these tools incredibly useful, so I really recommend incorporating them into your playstyle. You'll be surprised how much they can expand your combat options. According to the story, you're a half yokai, which means you have powers derived from being a yokai, and you can transform into a yokai briefly. There are 3 main ways to use yokai powers: yokai shift, burst counter, and yokai abilities. Yokai shift is kind of like a super mode, but it's more sophisticated than that. You can actually build an entire playstyle around staying in yokai shift as long as possible and extending its duration. There are 3 types of yokai shift you can try. I mostly use the brute. I keep it simple, so I can't speak in depth about the others, but from what I can tell, each have their own pros and cons. Enemies will perform attacks marked in red, and these attacks cannot be guarded except by dodging or interrupting with a burst counter. The brute's burst counter is a big arm swing. The advantage? Timing isn't terribly strict. Most red attacks have a long windup, so you can interrupt them immediately. But the downside? Some attacks are so fast or have odd trajectories that the burst counter just seemed to be too slow no matter how quickly I anticipated it. Or you'll need precise timing if the attack is moving toward you. Whereas the purple yokai or bird yokai works differently. It can't interrupt any time like the brute, but its timing is a bit more forgiving if you're trying to intercept an attack moving toward you. While in yokai shift, your attacks do heavy damage, but you're still vulnerable to many boss moves, and this is why I don't think of it as a super move. I think of it more as an extra mode for damage, similar to switching to a more effective weapon. You still need to change stances, use special attacks, and burst counter appropriately while in yokai shift, so be mindful of that. Yokai abilities are another major part of the system. Anytime you kill a yokai, there's a chance that it will drop a soul core. Soul cores can be attuned to guardian spirits and mapped to a hotkey. Pressing and holding the right trigger along with an attack button will execute the yokai ability. Soul cores come with stats and effects that can enhance your build and expand your playstyle. For me, I put Ippon on right trigger and Y, and I never looked back. By the time I got to the last boss, I didn't even have a third yokai ability equipped. Ippon carried me the entire way. Now, there are a few ways to use yokai abilities in combat. You'll need to have gotten at least the very first soul core in the first mission, so in order to practice this, we have to go to the dojo. So, hopefully you have a staff on you. We're going to go back to the staff combo we originally started. To remember the combo, it's 1, 2, 3, pulse and go, heavy attack, pre-switch to low stance, pulse and go, heavy attack. Now, let's add the yokai ability at the end. Doing this gives your ki a chance to build back up while dealing heavy damage to the enemy. You can also begin a combo string with a yokai ability. It's completely up to you to decide when it fits best. This brings me to the second reason why I kind of struggled with Nioh 2 the first time. I'm not a fan of relying on powers that turn you into a monster. That's a trope I just don't enjoy, and stories like Naruto, Chainsaw Man, or Attack on Titan all feature it. I prefer the man versus monster style stories, not becoming the monster myself, kind of like Demon Slayer. Though that story still flirts with that trope a bit with his sister. Now at first, using yokai shift and yokai abilities felt that way to me, so I just wanted to avoid them entirely. People on YouTube and Reddit rightfully called me out for it, and once I got past that mindset, I was able to accept and even embrace these mechanics, and that made a huge difference in how the game clicked for me. Okay, so let's go back to our practice combo. Remember, you want to go 1, 2, 3, pulse and go, heavy attack, pre-switch to low stance, heavy attack, then use your yokai ability. I recommend putting your yokai ability on right trigger and Y just to keep it simple, but you'll notice that after you've done your yokai ability, you'll see the key bar start to fill. So, working yokai abilities into your combos is a great way to give yourself some ki so that you can continue your assault after it's done. Like I said, it's really up to you to how you want to mix these in, but there's a lot of interesting ones and they can do some cool stuff, and watch a lot of other players and how they use them. So, that's as far as I'm going to go with yokai abilities. I'm going to leave it to you to capture them and experience them yourself, but this is just an example of how you can work them into your combos fluidly. Now, let's get to my favorite part of Nioh 2, the defense. Defense in this game is very simple on the surface, but there's depth once you dig in. There are two mechanics that are universal to all weapons. The first is the basic block. You hold L1 or left bumper to block incoming attacks. Blocking costs ki, and if you run out, you enter a crumple state, which leaves you vulnerable to grapples. Nioh 2 also has timely guarding, though I'll admit I haven't really explored it yet, because even after 500 hours of playtime and making this video, there are still a few questions I want to figure out. Can any weapon do it? Or only those with timely guarding skills? Does it work on humans and yokai? Do you need gear that grants it? And I think that's interesting that I still haven't figured that out, because I promise you, after 500 hours of Nioh, you're barely scratching the surface of how much depth this game really has. So, if you're going to get on this journey, understand that the path to mastery takes a long, long time, which is why I wanted to make this video the way I did, so that I can help you close some of those tough gaps a little easier, and hopefully this video does help you do that. So for now, timely guarding is something I can't talk a ton about because I don't really know about it. Now normally I dislike holding guard, but as I mentioned with Opportunist, some abilities can only be executed from the guard, so I found myself using it a lot. The other universal defensive technique available to all weapons is the dodge. You tap X or A to perform a dodge, and you double tap to roll. One thing to note is it seems a single tap in high stance is always a roll, so look out for that. Now, we need to talk about dodging for a minute because Nioh 2's dodge can be confusing. And on the surface, it seems straightforward, and technically it is. The confusion comes from comparing it to other games, especially if you're coming from the Souls-like series. And this is where a lot of the people in Reddit and YouTube who tell you you're playing it like a Souls-like, they are correct about this. I just didn't think they were correct with me because I was trying to guard and parry and treating it like a different game that was already a Team Ninja game. So this video is aimed at people who have never played a Souls-like or have played other Souls-like and are coming over to Nioh 2 so you can understand its mechanics. In Nioh 2, the dodge timing is very tight, but the tricky part isn't the iframes window. Let me use Elden Ring to explain as an example. In most Souls games, you're almost pre-dodging. You dodge before an attack lands so that your invincibility frames carry you through the hit. The startup frames of your dodge are usually not invincible, so you need to anticipate the attack and start your dodge early. You might be tempted to approach Nioh 2 the same way, but that's actually wrong. In Nioh 2, you often want to do the opposite. Slightly delay your dodge so that you dodge just as the attack is about to hit. Now, dodge is more than just a way to avoid damage. I want to drill this into your mind. Movement is defense, and I don't mean running away. I hate running away, even though I'll be honest, sometimes you have to just get out. So like, I'm not judging if you do it or acting like I'm better than other people. I'm just saying when I have to run away, it bothers me. So, movement, positioning, spacing. Those are all part of your defense. These are things that help you to read and anticipate enemy attacks. And dodge in Nioh 2 helps you control all of that. Now, in Souls-like games, this is universal. Nioh 2 is no exception. There are basically two types of dodging. There's dodging for distance, or what we would call panic dodging, and dodging for position, what we would call precision dodging. When most players start out playing any game, it doesn't matter, Nioh 2, Stranger of Paradise, Elden Ring, Dark Souls, you will instinctively dodge for distance. You don't know what attacks are coming, and when you get hit, your instinct is to panic and get away to create space to heal. But the developers know this. This is why many enemies have long wind-up times and huge long hitboxes, and they punish players who rely on distance dodging. What we want to do is gradually convert our dodging from distance to position as we learn a fight. So instead of running away, you dodge into the right spot where you can continue attacking or set up your next move. Over time, you'll find that dodging for position is actually safer and feels much more satisfying, especially when you can do it competently against tough enemies. So, let's add dodging for position to our practice combo. Alright, we need to go back to the dojo for this. Now, there is an ability in the samurai skill tree that you'll want to get eventually, and you pretty much have to get it, but it makes it so that your dash is a key pulse, and this is huge. But even if you don't have that, you don't need that to practice what I'm about to show you. It just helps a lot because it helps refund the key, and it helps dispel the yokai pools. But just for practicing, we don't need that. You don't have to have that ability. You can still learn this without that skill. Alright? Remember the combo we've been working on so far. So, I'm going to review it real quick. It's 1, 2, 3, pulse and go, mid heavy attack, pre-switch to low, pulse and go, low heavy attack, then key pulse. Now, instead of pulsing after the first part of the combo, we're going to add a dash. And make sure you're holding on to the heavy attack button when you do the mid heavy and the low heavy. Okay, let's practice the beginning part for now. Instead of going 1, 2, 3, pulse and go, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, dash and go. So it looks like this. 1, 2, 3, dash and go, mid heavy. 1, 2, 3, dash and go, mid heavy. Once you're comfortable with that, we can add the rest of the combo. 1, 2, 3, dash and go, mid heavy attack. Pre-switch to low, pulse and go, low heavy attack. You can throw in the Yokai ability if you want, if you have the anima and key pulse. This practice will teach you how to integrate movement into your combos, reinforcing positional dodging while maintaining flow and damage output. Now, let's talk about dash attacks. Every weapon in Nioh 2 has at least one attack you can execute immediately after a dash. Incorporating this into your play can increase the flow of your offense and can even be the difference between hitting an enemy and letting them escape. Especially those that like to dash for distance, like the annoying snake woman. The dash attack is simple. Just press quick attack or heavy attack right after a dash. I got a ton of use out of this with the fist, and you can use dash attacks to flow seamlessly into your combo, avoid damage while dodging for position, or just add some really cool flair to your attack string because honestly, it's just fun. Dash attacks are one of those small tools that can make your combat feel fluid and dynamic, and the more you practice, the more natural they'll become. Okay, I know there's some things that I missed, because after I read this and I started working on this, I added this in here. I didn't talk about guardian spirits or how they affect your build, and I forgot to add that anima is the resource that you have to build in order to use yokai abilities, so some stuff the game is going to explain to you. You don't necessarily need me to break that down. That's pretty simple. So, yeah, just make sure that you're pressing the start button, and you can use that to bring up a tooltip that will explain what everything does. My first playthrough of Nioh 2, where I actually beat the game, I pressed start and I read every single tooltip that I could because I really wanted to understand what it meant, and some words that I didn't understand I did go to like resources like Reddit or Google just to get a better understanding of how it affects my build. I really dove into this game the second time after making that video because some people rightly called me out and they said, oh, well, I'm not going to watch a video that you made about a game you don't understand. And they were right. I didn't understand, and that sat with me. And I wanted to understand it. So if there's anything in this game that you don't understand, pressing the start button will bring up a menu, and you can toggle through these things, and you can read what it does. And so if you ever have a question, I highly recommend you do this. Now, of course, there are plenty of people on Reddit and YouTube that are more than happy to point you in the right direction. They love to see other people grow and get better at this game, and so there's a great community in Reddit and YouTube that you can rely on to help you improve at this game. And hopefully, I have become a stepping stone on that journey of getting better at Nioh 2. Alright, after all of that, it's time to give Nioh 2 a grade. Now, if you clicked on this video, the title might seem misleading because I said I couldn't give Nioh 2 an S tier grade, and it's not clickbait. I can't give Nioh 2 S tier, but not because it's worse. It's so much better. Stranger of Paradise is S+ in my opinion, but somehow Nioh 2 pushes the limits of action RPG combat in ways I didn't expect. Managing ki and stance changing are brilliant mechanics that add to the flow of combat in a way that's subtle yet deeply profound. Nioh 2 demands a ton of mental load, and you can literally tell when it's time to take a break because suddenly you're not stance switching anymore. That might sound like a flaw at first, but it's actually a sign of truly high quality combat. At its core, Nioh 2 has probably the best combat system I've ever played, and while I don't think others should copy it wholesale, I do think developers should study what Nioh 2 does well when designing their own systems, especially the stance switching. What makes stance switching so good, in my opinion, is think about a game like Elden Ring. There is only really one set move list that you have available for your weapons. So you'll do the entire game just doing the same attacks over and over and over. And while that never wore me out, having three stances that are fundamentally different, and then you can chain attacks between the three stances at any point in time and mix and match them together, gives a ton of variety. Even in regular fighting, there's only so much you can do. I mean, yes, there are some people who can do some wild kicks and stuff, but if you watch boxing and stuff, they're really throwing a lot of the same punches. It's more a matter of endurance and reading the enemy and drawing out their tendencies and then landing the combos that you've practiced and relied on. And Nioh 2 very much feels like that. And so the stance switching really keeps the game fresh. And then there's 11 weapons with 3 stances each. There's so much to master with this game. And then you add in yokai abilities, you add in the ninjutsu, you add in the onmyo magic. This game offers you a ton. And so I really think that game developers should take time to study what Nioh 2 actually does well, because I've played a lot of Team Ninja games and I'm kind of a Team Ninja stan now, and I can tell they liked Stranger of Paradise. I think that, I don't know, Wolong Fallen Dynasty, it was fun. It wasn't a bad game. I'd give it an A combat system, but that's because they designed it so heavily around the parry that they have. But Nioh 2 feels like the game that they really wanted to make. It's clear to me this is the game they wanted to make. And so I think there's a lot here for other people, other developers to study and see how they can apply it to their own system. I remember the moment that I could fluidly stance change in combat without thinking about it. I'll tell you the secret. Once you know what abilities are on any given stance, then your brain starts to think, how can I get access to that, over trying to remember how to stance switch. And so what I didn't understand was how important it was to know when you can act when the key fund recharge starts. So that's actually the huge part of this. You got to know when you can actually execute the ability to fluidly switch between them. Okay, but it wasn't just an aha thing. Like it was just there. I knew that I wanted to use Ocean Zephyr. I knew that I wanted to Opportunist. I knew that I wanted to do Spinning Kick. Like, let me show you one of my favorite combos. I would be in high stance and I would do Spinning Kick. I would switch to mid while Spinning Kick was happening, and I would do Fracture Foe, and I would stop into Archer Impact, switch down to low stance, do Fracture Foe again, and then I forget what the forward A attack is, but I would use that to go in the air and come down and Archer Impact again, and by then I could Flux 2 and be in high. And I didn't talk about Flux either, but I think I want to make a follow-up video talking about the fist where I'll kind of go more in depth about Flux 2 and stuff. So let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in that. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to thank the YouTubers and the Nioh 2 Reddit community, because your encouragement, your feedback, and even the criticism have been invaluable in helping me understand the game and improve my own content. Seriously, seeing your comments and suggestions has made this journey even more enjoyable. Now, if you're wondering, I am still deep in the world of Nioh 2, and I am working through the New Game Plus modes. Well, I should say, I've made it through them, and I have reached the underworld. There is so much more to explore and master, and I can't wait to share it with all of you as I go further. So please let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video and you would like to see a second video going over the fist and my adventure in the underworld. I don't know that if I'll make it all the way to the depths, because I know how difficult it is, but there's still a lot about this game I want to talk about. And because I was working 2 jobs, I haven't been able to make videos at the rate that I want. So if you did enjoy this video and you want to see more, consider subscribing, because it helps me, stay motivated to keep creating and help me get to my goal of 1,000 subscribers. Because I'm not looking for like fame or fortune or to be some kind of millionaire, but if I could even get a couple $100 a month from YouTube because I got monetized after 1,000 subscribers, that could replace a second job for me, and making videos that you guys enjoy could be a second job, and it would help me a ton. So if you did enjoy this and you made it all the way to this point, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It would really help me. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know that the game would be so high in my mind without the fist. The fluid gameplay of Opportunist and Ocean Zephyr make the fist unlike anything else I've ever played. But managing the stance changing with the key pulse added a layer of complexity to combat that I sincerely enjoyed, and in some ways I feel empty without now that when I play other games that don't have it. And when a game makes that big of an impact, it seems impossible to put in a category with others. So I had to create a new tier to put Nioh 2 in. So I give Nioh 2 not an S, not even S+, but the new tier of Omega level combat, and I'm not sure any other game will ever get that grade. So here's for hoping for Nioh 3. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.